He called me a freeloader. In the house I built with my own 2 hands. My daughter just watched, silent. They thought they had broken the old contractor. They were about to learn I still had a few tools left in the belt. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and tell you how a pot of chili burned down my entire life, and why I was the one holding the match. My name is Thomas. I'm 68. I spent my life building things, fixing things. I built this house too. A 5-bedroom Victorian. Every nail, every board, every brick. My wife Helen and I built it together. We never had a mortgage. We paid cash. We sacrificed everything for this place. It was our fortress. Helen passed 3 years ago. The silence since then has been heavy, deafening. This big house felt empty. The walls seemed to close in on me. That's why I said yes when my daughter Lisa and her husband Kevin asked to move in. They needed to save money, they said. I needed company. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I thought I was getting my family back. I was wrong. It started slowly, an occupation disguised as a family reunion. They didn't just move in, they took over. First, it was the master bedroom, the one with the balcony overlooking Helen's garden, the room I shared with my wife for 40 years. I didn't want to give it up, but Kevin insisted. I came home one day and my clothes were in boxes, my photos were off the walls. "We need the space, Dad," Lisa had said. She was twisting her wedding ring nervously. She always did that when she felt guilty. "Kevin needs a home office, and the light in here is perfect." I moved into the small guest room downstairs, the one overlooking the alley. It felt like a downgrade, a dismissal. But I kept the peace. I swallowed the hurt. But that wasn't the worst part. Then came the upgrades. Helen's favorite armchair, worn, comfortable. It disappeared, replaced by a stiff, modern leather thing that looked like it belonged in a museum. "It was clutter, Dad," Lisa said, avoiding my eyes. Clutter. My wife's memory was clutter. The kitchen was next. Helen loved that kitchen. We had an old reliable refrigerator. It hummed a little, but it worked fine for 20 years. Kevin hated it. He insisted on stainless steel. "We need to modernize, Tom," he'd said, tapping his expensive watch. He replaced the counters with cold, hard granite. Slowly, Helen's warmth was being erased, and I was letting it happen. I was fading away in my own home. It was Sunday. I was making chili. Helen's recipe. The rich, spicy smell filled the kitchen. It was a tradition, a small ritual to keep her memory alive. I stirred the pot, the wooden spoon worn smooth from years of use. I felt a small moment of peace. Then Kevin walked in. Kevin worked in finance. He always talked about assets and leverage. He wore designer jeans and a polo shirt, even on a Sunday. He never got his hands dirty. He sniffed the air. His nose wrinkled in disgust. "Chili again, Tom?" he asked. His voice dripped with disdain. I kept stirring. "It's tradition, Kevin. It's a bit pedestrian, don't you think?" he said, opening the new refrigerator. "Common. Boring. I was hoping for that expensive salmon we bought." "I was saving the salmon for tomorrow," I said quietly. Kevin scoffed. He pulled out a bottle of imported sparkling water. The man wouldn't even drink tap water. Tradition doesn't appreciate in value. He leaned against the granite counter. The way he stood there, like he owned the place, made my skin crawl. He was circling me, like a shark smelling blood. The real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. "Speaking of value," Kevin said, his voice lowering, "we need to talk about your contribution." I turned down the heat on the stove. A familiar knot tightened in my stomach. "Contribution? I gave Lisa money for groceries last week. And I fixed the furnace yesterday," I added. "That saved you a few $100s. I was trying to prove my worth. In my own house. The thought made me sick. Kevin laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "A few hundred? Tom, wake up. Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain a property like this? The taxes are insane. The utilities are through the roof." He gestured around the kitchen. "Frankly, we have a lifestyle to maintain. We can't afford to carry you anymore." "Carry me?" The words stung. "I built this place. I paid for it." "Things are getting tight?" I asked, confused. "Kevin, you just bought a new Mercedes last month." His face reddened. He hated being questioned. "That's a business expense, Tom," he snapped. "It's about image. You wouldn't understand. You're from a different generation." He always said that, as if I was stupid, as if I was useless. He walked over to the kitchen table and stood over me. His eyes were cold, calculating. He enjoyed this. He enjoyed the power. "You think saving pennies is enough?" he said. "But in the real world, you have to spend money to make money." I gripped the edge of the table. My knuckles turned white. I knew what was coming next, and I dreaded it. "Here's the deal," Kevin said, leaning in close. His breath smelled like expensive coffee. "Starting next month, you're going to pay rent. In my own home." "How much?" I whispered. $2,000. Due on the 1st. $2,000. That was more than my entire monthly pension. He knew it. This wasn't a request. It was an eviction notice disguised as a lease agreement. "Rent," I said, the word tasting like ash. "Kevin, this is my home. I built this house." That's when the mask finally slipped. The polite disdain turned into raw, ugly rage. Kevin's jaw tightened. The silence in the kitchen was absolute. The only sound was the quiet bubbling of the chili on the stove. The air felt thin, hard to breathe. He gripped the back of a chair so hard his knuckles turned white. "Your home?" he yelled. He slammed his fist on the table. The silverware rattled violently. "This is my house now. I manage it. I pay the bills. I upgraded it." He leaned in closer, his face twisted with anger. "You just sit here cooking your pedestrian chili and living off my generosity." Then came the killing blow. I am sick of supporting a freeloader. So let me make this crystal clear. Pay the rent or get out. Freeloader. The word hit me like a physical blow. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. In the house I built. The house where I raised my daughter. The house where my wife died. Freeloader. My throat burned. I wasn't going to let him see me break. Not here. Not now. I looked towards the doorway. Lisa was standing there. My daughter, my little girl. She had heard everything. She was staring at the floor, twisting her ring. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second. I searched for support, for defense. I found nothing. Only fear and a cold ambition that mirrored her husband's. She looked away. She said nothing. Her silence was a betrayal. Deeper than any insult Kevin could throw at me. She had chosen him. She had chosen his lifestyle over my dignity. In that moment, the grief, the confusion, the hurt, it all crystallized into a cold, hard clarity. They thought I was weak. They thought I was helpless. They thought because I was old and grieving, I was disposable. They were wrong, dead wrong. I pushed my chair back and stood up. My legs felt weak, but my resolve was suddenly made of steel. "All right, Kevin," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. "I understand," Kevin smirked. A victorious, ugly expression. He puffed out his chest. He thought he had won. He thought I would beg. "Good," he said. "So, the first payment." "I'm leaving," I interrupted. Kevin's smirk vanished. Lisa gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. "What?" she asked, finally speaking up. Her voice trembled. "Dad, where will you go?" "You said pay the rent or get out." I looked straight at Kevin. "I choose to get out." I turned to my daughter. "Don't worry about me, Lisa. I wouldn't want to interfere with your lifestyle." I walked out of the kitchen. I went up the grand staircase. I had carved by hand. I went to the small guest room they had assigned me. I pulled my old, battered suitcase from the closet. I packed my clothes, my tools. The framed photo of Helen I kept on the nightstand. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anger, a cold, focused anger I hadn't felt in years. Then I reached into the back of the closet, behind a loose baseboard I had installed myself 40 years ago. A secret compartment, for emergencies. My fingers brushed against cold metal. I pulled out a heavy, fireproof lockbox. They never knew this existed. They never bothered to look. They never bothered to see me. I sat on the edge of the bed. I entered the combination. Helen's birthday. The lock clicked open. Inside, beneath insurance papers and our marriage certificate, was the document that held the key to everything. The deed to this house. This $900,000 Victorian masterpiece. Kevin and Lisa didn't know I owned it outright. They assumed that because they paid the property taxes for the last few years, ownership had magically transferred to them. Or maybe they just believed that if they acted like they owned it, it is theirs. They were too busy maintaining their lifestyle to check the facts. Their arrogance was matched only by their ignorance. And their arrogance was going to be their downfall. I folded the deed and placed it securely in my jacket pocket. It felt heavy, powerful. It was my weapon. I went downstairs. They were already celebrating in the living room. A bottle of expensive champagne was open on the coffee table. They were toasting their victory, leaving so soon. Kevin chuckled. He raised his glass in a mock toast. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, Tom. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look at Lisa. I just walked out the front door, the door I had hung myself. I closed it quietly behind me. The sound of the latch clicking shut felt final. It was the end of an era and the beginning of a war. I checked into a modest extended-stay hotel downtown. It wasn't much. A small room, a kitchenette, but it was quiet. I was treated with respect. The woman at the front desk smiled at me. A genuine smile. It had been a long time since someone in my home had smiled at me like that. I laid the deed on the small desk. I looked at Helen's picture. The ache in my chest was sharp. He called me a freeloader, Helen, I whispered. In the house we built, tears stung my eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. The numbness was wearing off, replaced by a cold, focused determination. The next morning I woke up feeling different, lighter, stronger. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the disrespect, the humiliation. It was about my daughter forgetting who raised her, who built the very roof over her head. They wanted a fight. I was going to give them one. But I wasn't going to fight like Kevin with yelling and fists. I was going to fight like a contractor. I was going to dismantle their lives, piece by piece. I picked up the phone. I dialed a number I knew by heart. Hello, Mike. Mike Ramirez was my old business partner. My best friend. We built half this town together. He had transitioned from construction to real estate law years ago. He was smart, tough, loyal, and he hated bullies. Tom? Good to hear from you, buddy. What's going on? You sound rough. I told him everything. The demand for rent. The ultimatum. Kevin's insults. Lisa's silence. When I finished, Mike was silent. I could hear him breathing. Then I heard the click of his pen. He always did that when he was angry. That snake, he finally spat out. The venom in his voice was satisfying. He kicked you out of your own house? The one you built brick by brick? The one Helen decorated? Yes, Mike. And Lisa let him? His voice was filled with disbelief. She stood right there. They think they own it because they paid the taxes? Mike laughed. A harsh, humorless sound. That's not how it works, Tom. Not even close. I know. I have the deed right here. Good. Tom, Mike said, his voice hardening. We need to make this right. We need to burn them down. I want to sell it, Mike. Quickly, quietly, and for cash. Consider it done, Mike said instantly. The market is insane right now. We'll get top dollar, and we'll make sure everything is airtight. They won't know what hit them until the eviction notice is nailed to the door. The plan was set in motion. The demolition was about to begin. Mike connected me with a high-end real estate broker. Her name was Sarah Jenkins, known for her discretion. We met that afternoon at a coffee shop across town. Sarah was professional, polished. She wore a sharp suit and carried a leather briefcase. She didn't waste time. That's a stunning property, Mr. Miller, Sarah said. She looked over the photos and blueprints I provided. The craftsmanship is incredible. The recent upgrades in the kitchen helped too. The irony tasted bitter. Kevin's upgrades were about to help me destroy him. In this market, Sarah continued, we're looking at $900,000. Maybe more, if we get a bidding war. My breath caught. Almost $1 million. Helen and I had spent less than a quarter of that building it. I don't want a bidding war, I said firmly. I want a quick sale. No open houses. No sign in the yard. The current occupants must not know. Sarah raised an eyebrow. She sensed the drama, but she didn't pry. She was a professional. Understood. I have a list of investors looking for unique properties like this. They prefer quiet transactions. They pay cash and close fast. Perfect, I said. The wheels started turning, faster than I anticipated. Meanwhile, life at the Victorian house seemed blissful. For Kevin and Lisa, at least. Lisa called me about a week after I left. I let it ring twice before answering. I was curious. Dad? Her voice was strained, forced cheerfulness. How are you? We were surprised you left so suddenly. Surprised. Not worried. Not sorry. Surprised. I'm fine, Lisa. I found a place. Oh, good. A long pause. I waited. I knew she wanted something. Kevin wanted me to ask, she finally said, if you knew anything about the electrical panel. He's having trouble installing the new hot tub. My blood ran cold. A hot tub. They kicked me out because things were tight, and now they were installing a hot tub. The audacity was staggering. A hot tub? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Yes, it's gorgeous. Stone surround, waterfall feature. Kevin says it's an investment. We have to keep upgrading if we want to maintain the value. We're leveraging the equity. Leveraging the equity. They were taking out loans against the house. My house. The thought filled me with a sudden panic. Could they legally do that? Could they cloud the title if they believed they owned it? I immediately called Mike. Relax, Tom, Mike assured me. His voice was calm, steady. They can apply, but without your signature and the clear title, the bank won't approve it. The title search will stop them cold. I breathed a sigh of relief, but it solidified my need to move quickly. Before they incurred massive debt, they couldn't repay. Before things got even messier. I don't remember the electrical panel. Lisa, I told her before hanging up. Sounds like Kevin will have to figure it out. He was going to have a lot more to figure out very soon. A few days later, I decided to drive by the house. I missed it. I missed the feel of the wood, the smell of the garden. I told myself I was checking on the property. But I was really torturing myself. I just wanted to see it one more time before it was gone. As I turned the corner onto my street, my heart stopped. I pulled over to the curb. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. In the backyard, where Helen's prize-winning rose bushes had stood for 30 years, was a massive pile of dirt. A backhoe had idle. The roses were gone, torn out, destroyed. The earth was raw. Ugly. Deep tracks scarred the lawn. It looked like a fresh grave. The vibrant colors of the roses, the reds, the pinks, the yellows were gone, replaced by mud and debris. They were putting the hot tub right where Helen used to sit and read, where we used to drink coffee on summer mornings. The place where we scattered her ashes. They hadn't just removed the bushes. They had desecrated a sacred space. They hadn't just disrespected me. They had disrespected her. It felt like losing Helen all over again. A violation of her memory, a physical manifestation of their disrespect. Any shred of guilt I felt about selling the house evaporated in an instant, replaced by a cold, burning fury. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It is about justice, and I was going to get it. If this story kept you here till now, drop a like and stay close. The real storm begins after you subscribe. I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Petrov, standing in her yard. She was staring at the destruction. She saw me in my truck. Mrs. Petrov knew Helen well. They shared gardening tips for decades. She was a kind woman, but she loved gossip. She looked at me, and her eyes were filled with pity. She knew what was happening. The whole neighborhood probably did. The rich kids pushing the old man out. I drove away. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I needed this to be over. I needed them to pay. We have a problem, Sarah called me. The following Monday. My stomach dropped. What is it? Did the deal fall through? No. I have a serious buyer. An investment group. Cash offer, $910,000. $10,000 above asking. That's great news, I said, confused. What's the problem? They insist on a walkthrough before finalizing the paperwork. A walkthrough? Impossible. My stomach tightened. Sarah, they are living there. They can't see anyone viewing the house. They will know something is up. It will blow the whole deal. I know, Miss Miller, she said, her voice calm but firm. But these investors are serious. They are only in town today. They want to see the property in person. We need a way to get your daughter and her husband out of the house for a few hours. She paused. Can you help? I thought for a moment Kevin was obsessed with status, with image. He couldn't resist anything labeled exclusive. I think I have an idea, I said. A plan formed in my mind. A risky plan, but necessary. I called Lisa. I had to put on a performance. Honey, I said, my voice sounding warmer than I felt. I feel terrible about how we left things. I'd like to treat you and Kevin to a day out. Silence on the other end. Suspicion. A day out? She asked. Why? I heard there's an exclusive food and wine festival downtown today, I said. The kind Kevin loves. I managed to get VIP tickets. It was a lie. I just bought the most expensive tickets available online. The cost was steep. Nearly $1,000. But it was an investment in my revenge. Lisa was hesitant. I heard her whispering to Kevin in the background. I heard the word VIP. Then Kevin grabbed the phone. His voice was loud, arrogant. Tom, VIP tickets? The ones with the private tasting rooms and the celebrity chefs? His voice was eager, greedy. That's the one, I said, forcing a smile I knew he couldn't see. Absolutely. We'll be there, he said, his arrogance returning. Good to see you're finally learning to spend your money wisely, Tom. The arrogance made the deception easy. He still thought I was a fool. He was about to learn how wrong he was. That afternoon, I met them downtown. Briefly, I handed them the tickets. Kevin barely looked at me. He was already scanning the crowd, looking for someone important to impress. I have a doctor's appointment, I lied. Enjoy the day on me. As soon as they disappeared into the crowd, I texted Sarah. The house is clear. You have 3 hours. On our way, she replied. The trap was set. The waiting was agonizing. I paced the hotel room. Anxiety gnawed at me. What if they came home early? What if the festival was boring? What if Mrs. Petrov saw the group of well-dressed investors and called Kevin? She was always watching. I realized how precarious my plan was. If Kevin discovered what I was doing before the sale closed, he could tie things up in court for months, maybe years. Even if he had no legal standing, he could make my life miserable. The entire plan hinged on this one afternoon. This one lie. 3 hours felt like 3 days. I checked my phone every 2 minutes. Silence. Finally, Sarah called. I nearly dropped the phone. They completed the walkthrough, she said. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the excitement underneath. And they loved it. They appreciated the upgrades in the kitchen, and they didn't seem to mind the construction in the backyard. They are planning a full renovation anyway. Level it. The last remnants of Helen's garden would be gone, but it didn't matter anymore. The memory was already destroyed. The offer is official, Sarah continued. $9,000, $10,000. Cash, closing in 10 days. I nearly collapsed with relief. I sat down on the bed. My legs gave out. Accept it, I said. My voice was hoarse. Accept the offer. The next 10 days were a blur of paperwork and anxiety. I met with Mike to finalize everything. We reviewed the deed, the clear title, everything proving I was the sole owner. This is airtight, Tom, Mike assured me, sliding the documents across his desk. They have absolutely no legal claim. Zero. They were tenants at will. And you willed them out. I should have felt relieved. But I felt a growing sense of dread. The storm was coming, and it was about to hit hard. During this time, Lisa called again. This time, the forced cheerfulness was gone. She sounded stressed. Deeply stressed. Dad, are you busy? Her voice was tight, high-pitched. What is it, Lisa? It's the bank? She whispered, as if someone might hear her. Kevin is furious. He's downstairs screaming right now. My heart pounded. Had they found out? What happened? I asked carefully. The home equity loan we applied for, she cried. The one for the hot tub and the new landscaping. They denied it. I froze. The closing process must have triggered the title search. The truth was surfacing. Denied it. Why? I played dumb. They said something about the ownership records not matching the application. Her voice rose hysterically. It makes no sense. This is our house. Kevin is yelling at the loan officer right now, a woman named Jenna. He's threatening to sue the bank. He's talking about incompetence. We were running out of time. The bank's denial was a massive red flag. If Kevin listened to Jenna instead of just yelling, he hired his own lawyer to investigate the title, the whole plan could collapse before the closing finalized. I'm sorry to hear that, Lisa, I said, choosing my words carefully. Maybe it's a sign you should slow down on the spending. Slow down? She shrieked. We can't slow down. We have bills to pay. The contractors are demanding their deposits. They are threatening to walk off the job. And, she continued, her voice dropping to a panicked whisper, Kevin just put a down payment on a new Tesla to replace the Mercedes. He said we needed an electric car to improve our image. Another new car. They were living a fantasy, a house of cards built on greed and the illusion of wealth, an illusion I had provided. They were drowning in debt, and they didn't even know it. Hearing the genuine panic in my daughter's voice hurt. More than I expected. She was trapped by Kevin's ambition, but she had been a willing participant. She stood by silently when he called me a freeloader. I wrestled with the urge to save her. To warn her, I had to remind myself that rescuing her now would only enable them further. This was tough love, the hardest kind, and it tore at my heart, but I had to see it through. I called Sarah immediately. We need to close now, today. Mr. Miller, the buyers are scheduled for Friday. It's Tuesday. Please, Sarah, the banks are asking questions. Kevin is looking into the ownership records. We are out of time. If they find out, this deal is dead. Sarah understood the urgency. She was silent for a moment. Let me call the investors, she said. I'll tell them there's a competing offer, that we need to close immediately, or we walk away. A bluff, but a necessary one. The buyers, eager to secure the property in the hot market, agreed. They didn't want to lose the house. The closing was moved to the next morning, Wednesday, 9 a.m., the final act. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling of the hotel room. I thought about Helen. Was this what she would have wanted? Selling the home we built together, destroying our daughter's life. I wrestled with my conscience. Was I seeking justice or simply revenge? I looked at the picture of Helen I kept in my wallet. I remembered her strength, her fierce protection of our family, her intolerance for disrespect. She would have wanted me to stand up for myself, to protect what we built, not the bricks and mortar, but the dignity. I concluded it was justice. This was the only way. The next day, I sat in a sterile office at the title company. The air conditioning was too high. I felt cold, numb. I signed document after document. My hand ached, but with every signature, a weight lifted off my chest. And then it was done. The title agent smiled, a bright, impersonal smile. Congratulations, Mr. Miller. The wire transfer is complete. I checked my bank account on my phone. The screen glowed, $910,000. It wasn't just money. It was freedom. It was vindication. I walked out of the office. The sunlight blinded me. I breathed the fresh air. It was over. Now the fallout. Mike explained the next steps. We sat in his car outside the title office. The new owners are legally required to give the occupants notice, Mike said. Since they are investors and plan to renovate the property extensively, they want them out quickly. How quickly? They are serving a standard 30-day notice to vacate. When? I asked. Tomorrow morning, Mike said. I hired the best process server in the city, a guy named Stan. He doesn't mess around. The hammer was about to drop. I didn't sleep that night. The anticipation was electric. The next morning, I was there, parked down the street, in my old pickup truck, hidden behind a large oak tree. I needed to witness it. I needed to see his face. 10 a.m. sharp. A nondescript sedan pulled up to the house. Stan, the process server, got out. He was a big man, gruff, emotionless, the messenger of doom. He walked up the path I had laid stone by stone. He rang the doorbell. I saw Kevin answer the door. He looked annoyed at the interruption. He was holding a coffee mug. Stan handed him a thick envelope. Kevin took it. confused. He opened it. He started reading. His face turned pale, then bright red. He dropped the mug. It shattered on the porch. Coffee sprayed everywhere. I saw him yelling, pointing at the paper, waving his arms frantically. Stan just shrugged. His job was done. He walked away. Kevin stumbled back inside. The door slammed shut so hard the whole house seemed to shake. The silence on the street felt heavy. Loaded, the illusion was shattered. I waited. An hour passed. My phone rang. It was Lisa, I answered. She was hysterical, barely coherent. Dad, you have to help us, she screamed. We're being evicted. They're kicking us out. Evicted? I asked, playing my part one last time. Calm, confused. What are you talking about, Lisa? We got a notice. It says the house has been sold. Sold. How is that possible? Her voice was filled with panic. Real panic. Kevin says it's a mistake, she continued, sobbing. A scam. He's calling the police. The bank. Everyone. He says someone stole our house. Stole their house. The irony was almost too much. I'm sure Kevin will figure it out, I said calmly. My voice was cold, detached. He handles the finances, right? He manages the assets. I hung up. My hand was steady. The die was cast. The next few weeks were chaotic. For them, I monitored the situation from a distance. Through Mike. Lawyers were called. Threats were made. But there was nothing they could do. The sale was legal. The title was clear. I was the owner, and I had sold my property. Kevin tried everything. He claimed fraud. He claimed elder abuse. He even tried to claim adverse possession, that he owned the house because he lived there long enough. But Mike was prepared. He shut down every attempt before it even reached a courtroom. The documentation was flawless. The deed was ironclad. They had no legal standing. They were trespassers. They were trapped. The 30 days were almost up. Their facade of wealth crumbled rapidly. The illusion shattered. The expensive furniture they had bought on credit? Repossessed. I saw the truck arrive one afternoon. They carried out the stiff leather chairs. The granite dining table. The new Mercedes disappeared overnight. Repossessed. The down payment on the Tesla? Forfeited. The contractors placed a lien on the property for the unpaid work on the hot tub. The unfinished construction sat abandoned. A monument to their greed. But that was the new owner's problem now. They started packing. The arrogance was gone. Replaced by desperation. The empire had fallen. The day before the eviction deadline. The final day they could legally occupy the house. My phone rang again. This time, it was Kevin. I answered. The silence on the other end was heavy. Suffocating. I waited. I said nothing. I had all the time in the world. You, he finally whispered. His voice was hoarse. Broken. The fight had gone out of him. He was defeated. You did this. Did what, Kevin? I asked, sipping my coffee. I had just moved into a beautiful condo overlooking the park, paid in cash. It was peaceful, quiet. The house. The sale. It was you. It wasn't yelling anymore. He was whimpering. How? How could you own it? We paid the taxes. We maintained it. We invested thousands. Paying the taxes doesn't transfer ownership, Kevin, I explained patiently, as if talking to a child. I built that house. I paid for it with my own money. It was always mine. I paused, letting the truth sink in. You just never bothered to check the records. You assumed you were so focused on your lifestyle that you forgot the basics. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing. Ragged. Shallow. We gave you a home, he choked out. A last desperate attempt at claiming the moral high ground. We took care of you when you were grieving. The lie was staggering. No, Kevin, you didn't, I said. My voice was firm, calm. You tolerated me. You disrespected me. You tried to bleed me dry. You stood in my kitchen, I continued, the memories still fresh, still raw, surrounded by the life I built, and you called me a freeloader. You told me to pay the rent or get out. But $910,000. His voice cracked. The reality of the money hit him hard. Tom, please, We have nothing. Everything is gone. The panic was real now. He was begging. The man who had towered over me, yelling about pedestrian Chile, was now pleading for mercy. The cars, the credit. We have massive debts from the renovations. We have nowhere to go. Lisa is a wreck. Please, we need help. I understand you are in a difficult situation, Kevin. I said. The words were precise, cold. So you'll help us. Hope flared in his voice. You'll give us some of the money. We deserve something. We invested in the upgrades. Deserve. I shook my head. You didn't invest, Kevin. You speculated. With money you didn't have, on a property you didn't own. I paused, letting the silence build. This is the part that shocks you. This is the part you never saw coming. The real betrayal was your own ignorance. When you told me to get out of my house, I left, I said. I followed your instructions. Now the new owners are telling you to get out of their house, and you must go. But the money is my retirement, I said. It's the security I built for myself and Helen. You taught me a valuable lesson, Kevin. You said it yourself. In the real world, you have to look out for yourself. You have to maintain your lifestyle. You can't do this. He was screaming again, the desperation turning back to rage. She's your daughter. And I love her, I said, my voice heavy with sadness. But she made her choice. She stood by you silently while you tried to rob me of my dignity and my home. She said nothing when you destroyed her mother's roses. Actions have consequences. I finished. It's time you both learned that. Welcome to the real world. I hung up the phone. I was done. My heart was heavy. But I knew I had done the right thing. The next morning was moving day. I watched them again, parked down the street. The grand Victorian house looked sad, hollow, marked by the ugly scar of the unfinished construction in the backyard. A small, rusty rental truck was parked in the driveway. Kevin was loading boxes. He looked exhausted. Older, the expensive polo shirt was gone, replaced by a stained t-shirt and jeans. His arrogance had evaporated, leaving behind a shell of a man facing a very harsh reality. Lisa stood on the lawn, clutching a small potted plant. One of the few things they had left. She wasn't crying. She looked numb, lost. She saw me then. Our eyes met across the street. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just watched. She looked at me for a long moment. A look filled with pain, regret, and perhaps a glimmer of understanding. Then she turned away and got into the truck. Kevin closed the back of the truck. The metal doors screeched shut. He took one last look at the house. The house he thought was his empire, his ticket to the good life. Then he got in the truck and drove away. They disappeared down the street, leaving behind the wreckage of their greed and entitlement. I drove back to my condo. It was peaceful, bright, and entirely mine. I sat in my favorite chair, looking out the window at the park. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grass. I picked up the photo of Helen. "We did it, honey," I whispered. "We protected what we built." I finally understood that protecting my legacy wasn't about preserving the bricks and mortar. It was about preserving dignity. I don't know where they went. I heard through Mike that they moved to a different state, living in a small apartment, both working entry-level jobs to pay off their massive debts. Lisa hasn't called me since that day. Maybe one day she will. Maybe one day she'll understand that the hardest lessons are often the most necessary. I am not a rich man, but I have enough. I have my peace. I have my self-respect, and I have the satisfaction of knowing that the man who thought he could take everything from me ended up with nothing. Sometimes, the only way to teach someone the value of a home is to take it away from them. And as I sat there in the quiet stillness of my condo, I realized I was finally home. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.